as soon as it says it's go time, that means it's go time. It's my least favorite day of the year, Mace.
What? August the 6th?
Yes.
Why? What do you have against August the 6th?
I have against the faux outrage that comes with the first step chart. It's stupid. Every year we go through it. I've only got a couple questions on Twitter about it, thank God. But the first step chart doesn't mean a damn thing. So yeah, I hate this day.
And not only does it not mean a damn thing, it means even less this year than other years.
Right.
Like there are some years it meant a little something, but this meant absolutely nothing. If you've been not only going out to practice, but if you've been just following reports from practice, you would know Zach Wilson is not the number 2 quarterback as the depth chart claims he is.
Right.
It means bupkis. And of course, the depth chart came out, and what did we see at practice today? Still Zach Wilson with the 3s. Bo Nix was with the 1s yesterday. He was with the 2s today. Jarrett Stidham was with the 2s yesterday. He was with the 1s today. Same as it ever was.
Same as when my hand was. And a beautiful car. And a beautiful life. And a beautiful day, because we're not going to talk about the depth charts, because it doesn't mean crap. And I wish I could cuss and tell you all what it really means. But I want to talk about ball. And I think the most interesting thing of the day comes from your question to Lucas Kroll. Now, before we get to his answer, Mace, and calling Bo Nix and his passes electric, why did you mention characteristic? I thought that was an interesting word choice, because a pass and a football is an inanimate object, but you said the characteristic of Bo Nix's pass, and I thought his answer basically leads this entire show.
Well, I mean, sometimes if you were being casual, you'd say, what do you think of the ball? But I didn't want to embarrass myself by asking a phrase like, hey, can you tell me about the balls of Bo Nix? The balls Bo Nix throws,
Right.
No, I wasn't going to do that. That would have made me sound like an idiot. So in this case, it was owing to decorum to have proper phrasing that doesn't lead to a middle school-esque joke. That's why I did that.
Phrasing. And this is what Lucas Kroll had to say, and this is very significant.
Characteristics of a pass that he throws. Electric, I think he's the kind of guy, man, when he lets it go, it's just, there's always something with it. And it's going to be a ball that gives anyone an opportunity to make a play. So, every time those guys are back there, whether it's him, Stiddy, Zach, all these guys, man, they're doing a great job of giving us every chance to go and attack a ball and make a play. And, man, our receivers are doing an unbelievable job. Backs out of the backfield, everyone's, doing the role to be able to make plays for these quarterbacks.
It was interesting because he got it to where he was talking about all the quarterbacks. So,
sure,
he wanted to give props to all 3 of them that are throwing him passes over the course of training camp. That's quite magnanimous of Lucas Kroll for him to do. But when you talk about electric to describe the passes of Bo Nix, one thing that we're seeing, especially on those passes down the middle and even on about the 10 to 15 yard outs, is, man, there's some hot sauce on those passes.
Yeah.
He's winging it in there. And there was one play, it was the touchdown catch that he had from Bo Nix in 7-on-7 today. It was just to the left of the seam, right down the numbers left side. And it was about, I think the pass was about 20, 25 yards in the air. And that thing was on a rope and it was outside shoulder and you couldn't place it any better. And this really excites you thinking about Bo Nix, that we're not talking about the Teddy Bridgewater flutter ball in the red zone, which is one of the reasons why the Broncos offense in 2021 could march up and down the field between the 20s, but then would bog down in the red zone because the pass didn't have the same velocity And so defenders could react to it. And so it limited what you could accomplish there in the aerial game in that portion of the field. That's not the case with Bo Nix. He's throwing darts out there.
It's darts, and he must be good at darts, Mace, because it's windows. NFL windows are much, much smaller. They're the size of an iPad. College windows are the size of a small car sometimes. So you have small windows, and I think Lucas Kroll put it best. Not only the electric comment, but he said, passes that you're allowed to make plays on, and that's catchable passes. And I think Bo Nix has the most catchable passes. And you mentioned that touchdown. The very next play was another touchdown, about 20 yards that time to Tim Patrick. Another one where it's in stride, it's the correct shoulder, and it allows your receiver to do something.
Yeah. And that now in that case, you're right there and you're not asking for yak, but the rest of the field, you are asking for yards after the catch. It's going to create some interesting possibilities, and it's going to create a different success equation for some receivers. How Courtland Sutton gets his yards this year is going to look a lot different than you've seen in quite a long time. Actually, probably ever with Courtland Sutton.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be crossers going left to right, across the middle, the ball led, getting it to him, and then he can make that turn up field and use that long stride that he had and make some explosive plays happen. So it's teamwork when you're talking about the explosive plays. It's the receiver running a good route, the quarterback placing the ball well, and then the receiver taking it and turning a 9-yard crosser into a 25-yard gain. That's something we're seeing on a regular basis now in this offense. And we're seeing it from Sutton. We're seeing it from Kroll. We're seeing it from Greg Dulcich. We're seeing it from Josh Reynolds. I'm actually surprised at how little we've seen it from Marvin Mims Jr. so far, to be honest with you.
That's why I asked Coach Payton about the frustration. We'll probably play that clip in another show. But that question was about Mims. I didn't want to ask specifically about Mims because I didn't want to piss off Sean. But Mims has thrown his helmet. He's kicked at the ground. He's done the Ice Cube, what? I'm open.
Yeah.
What? He's gotten in arguments with Johnny Morton. Johnny Morton's yelled back at him, and he's yelled back at the coach. So, yeah, the Mims thing, I think we could table for a different show so we could play that clip. But,
yeah,
there's some frustration going on with that young player. And I think you're seeing better passes from Jaleel McLaughlin. He's catching things cleaner, unlike what we saw last year.
Yeah, he's catching it cleaner, and that's setting him up for yak. And I think it's helping him confidence-wise in his entire game. There was one play today. It was a sweep to the right, and there are missed blocks all over the place. It was a mess. Jaleel still got 7 yards on the play. It was the rare run play where you're like, wow, the back just found space that you weren't sure existed, and he made something happen on his own. But you're seeing him become more confident, and you're seeing Marvin Mims Jr. frustrated, and that's going to affect his confidence as well. The other thing also with Marvin Mims Jr. is we've heard Sean Payton talk about the big receivers
all the time.
Yes. He likes them big, long, tall. Tim Patrick is that. Josh Reynolds is that. Courtland Sutton is that. Troy Franklin is that.
Devon Bailey is that.
Yeah, Devon Bailey is that. Franklin, really good day on Monday. Not quite as good a day today. But there's a template, and Marvin Mims Jr. isn't fitting that. So it's well, okay, why did they draft him last year? Well, you're seeing there's room for other types of receivers in the Sean Payton offense. Brandon Cooks is an example that we talk about. And certainly there's room for Marvin Mims Jr. on special teams. But now what we're seeing is it's not that Mims isn't going to be a key part of the team, but it may be another year where we're talking about his explosives being on the kick and punt return game rather than on offense. And what this may well mean is Marvin Mims Jr. does have a huge role on special teams, which I think maybe wouldn't have been as large a role if he were flourishing on offense.
Yeah, if he was doing that, Mace, you wouldn't want him to have that role because you want to keep him fresh for the offense.
You wouldn't want to take the risk at all.
Yeah. So you give him time. I'm not in any rush to judgment on Marvin Mims. If I compare him to Emmanuel Sanders, he didn't do anything till year 5 when he's with Denver. So no 100-yard games, no 1,000-yard seasons in 4 years with the Steelers. So it might take that long, you know.
Of course, what you're saying there is he does it for another team. That's kind of your implication, and you don't want that.
No. If we look towards the future of this team, though, like who's the future Bo Nix targets? It might be Vele, who had strong chemistry with.
Yeah.
And maybe it's someone not yet on this team.
Now, Mama Monkey asked, does Marvin Mims Jr. make the team? Yes, he's on the team. He's in Sharpie. He's going to be there.
Pro Bowler special teams player.
Yes. And there's time to change the narrative because if he goes out there on Sunday in Indianapolis and makes a big play or two, then all this gets wiped away completely. But right now, like you said, what we're seeing is a player who appears to be very frustrated with things at the moment.
Yeah, frustrated, but they're working through it and they're preparing for a game. Not quite yet. They're still going through some of their stuff. Coach talked about that today. In addition to the zillion questions ad nauseum. The special teams questions ad nauseum bothered me the other day, and then the depth chart questions ad nauseum bothered me today.
Why do special teams questions bother you? Because they don't bother me.
Well,
I know you're anti-special teams.
This is interesting, but I felt the other day when there was like 5 questions about it. It's like, well, there's other things to discuss. But that's just me.
There are, but I think it was a line. It was a line of questioning there where he was giving some.
He was on a roll.
Yeah, the depth. You see, that's fine. I think we were talking about something where you've got his mind peaked, and it's kind of following up. The depth chart clearly it was annoying Sean Payton. Like it was like he didn't want to talk about it. Basically, the whole thing was a joke to him. He referenced how little time he took with it and how part of it was he didn't want to spend a lot of time meeting with Patrick Smythe, the Broncos chief communications officer. And so how do you do that? Well, then you spend as little time on this as possible. And then you just default and say the rookies are all going to be at the bottom of the line. That's it. That's Bo Nix is listed as a third team quarterback because he's a rookie. That's the entire reason. And it meant, and again, what we saw in terms of their use on the field meant zip. Period.
Zilch.
So,
Nada.
Nothing.
Here's Coach talking about the rookies in the depth chart.
I really want to just get it. I'm not ready for a depth chart, but I have to get a depth chart. So it's easy to push the underlying players to the back of the line and then make sure it's kind of where we sit right now. And that's really it. No, it's a good question, but I'm not trying to send messages at all.
That was Leggy that asked him that question, right? Are you trying to send a message with your depth chart? No, and for the whole pro football talk, and I get it, there's supposed to be clickbait and rumors, but like, Bo Nix has a lot of work to do because he's number 3. No, he's not. No.
Yeah. Yeah, the worst part was one of the Zach Wilson stands getting back and responding to me after I said PSA, this depth chart means nothing. Even Adam Schefter overreacted to it.
I saw that.
Of ESPN on Twitter. Like he sort of had a comment there right after it came down. I mean, it was funny. I look at it, I'm like, okay, where are the rookies? And Bo Nix 3. Okay. Where's Jonah Ellis? Well, he's way down there. Where's Audric Estime? He's way down there. And then I looked at like, okay, and then I saw the pattern, like, okay, they're all near the end, but they're not all last. And then I looked at the 2 that weren't last on the depth chart, and they were ahead of rookies that were undrafted. Literally, I think the depth chart read like something that came from a marketing department intern that just went by players returning from last year, free agent pickups, and then at the bottom, okay, we're going to put the rookies. Oh, this rookie was drafted. This rookie wasn't. Well, the undrafted guy is going to go after the drafted guy. If they had, if they had drafted 2 running backs, the second rounder would have been listed ahead of the 4th rounder.
Sure.
I think that there was that little effort put into it. And, I think, and they could have possibly even had, there was a bunch of ors, Riley Moss or Damari Mathis, Trenton Gill or Riley Dixon. The one that they didn't put on there that they could have easily put on there was Luke Wattenberg or Alex Forsythe or Sam Mustipher. Center today, it was Sam Mustipher. See, that's what matters, is what you're seeing on the field. And you're still seeing a 3 center rotation. After Luke Wattenberg got the first few days, and then it turned into a rotation. And you're still seeing a 2 quarterback rotation with Zach Wilson firmly with the 3s. Boom, done. Let's talk about another thing said about Bo Nix today. And that was from Jonas Griffith. When I asked him what sort of stress Bo Nix puts on an opposing defense.
A lot. I didn't realize how fast he was. It's kind of crazy because he had a scramble and he was running, I think it was a few days ago. And I was like, whoa, he's kind of fast. And I consider myself a fast guy. But, he's not as fast as me, but he's pretty fast.
Again, specific example talking about a play that he made in practice.
Mm-hmm.
Also something that I think reflected today, because you could argue that along with the back-to-back touchdowns in the red zone period, that his best play was one where he took off and ran. And by the way, speaking of rookies, Audric Estime with an absolute monster blitz pickup. And then Nix saw the alley, as Vince Lombardi would say, seal here, in the alley. Bo Nix saw the alley and took off. That's going to be a huge part of him this year, assuming he's the starting quarterback.
Yep.
And he's going to have full license to do that. And from Jonas Griffith's perspective, playing inside linebacker, a mobile quarterback makes things harder because you cannot concentrate strictly on your coverage responsibilities. You'll have coverage responsibilities going against the tight ends and the running backs typically, but then you've got to keep one eye on the quarterback. And so you end up you either end up having to do be the jack of both trades and master of none. Or if let's say you're going up against you got defense going up against you, and let's say Greg Dulcich, Lucas Kroll both have shown themselves to be pass catchers that you've got to take seriously as an opposing defense. Inside linebacker makes the choices. All right, I'm going to work on this in coverage, and then take my chances with Nix scrambling. If you take your chances with Nix scrambling, especially if it's man coverage, he's going to have some explosive runs, and then you're going to have to adapt. They're going to sacrifice coverage, and then somebody's going to be open. That it's massive in what it can do to discombobulate an opposing defense.
It's truly 11-on-11 football.
Yeah.
And I want to remind viewers, because it's been a while since we've seen Jonas Griffith, he's on the freak list. Like, he's a freakish athletic in terms of burst, spark score, etc. I don't know if he's on Bruce Feldman's freak list, but Jonas Griffith is a freak. Like, athletically, incredibly gifted. And he's like, whoa, that guy's fast.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah. That was telling. It was telling. It's one of those things where if it comes from DJ Jones on the defensive line, it doesn't mean very much. When it comes from Jonas Griffith, it means a little something, even though you do say, okay, is his speed the same since the injuries of the last couple of years? That's a question. I think we'll probably get a better answer to that when we get into the game on Sunday.
Think of what Griffith has told us. Think of what PJ Locke told us. Like, I think he's toying with the safeties, and we have proof of him toying with the safeties.
Yeah.
And he's fast, and his throws are electric, and he throws the most catchable ball. He is separating himself. I know there are others, and God bless everyone who goes to camp. And God bless everyone who doesn't go to camp. And I know there's people that are like, Bo isn't as good. No. Watch. Listen. He's separating himself.
But does that mean he's starting week 1?
That doesn't need to mean that, in my opinion.
It may not mean that, in part because I keep mentioning having that eject button almost, being able to have that lever that you can pull in case of an emergency in week 1. I was thinking today about one of Sean Payton's coaching contemporaries that was first on the same staff with him, and then they were rivals in the division for a while, and that is John Fox. They were on the Giants staff together in the early 2000s. Then they were both in the NFC South when Payton was with the Saints and Fox was with the Panthers before he came to Denver. In 2003, Foxy's second season on the job, just like Payton's second season here, they had Rodney Peete coming back from the previous season, and then they signed Jake Delhomme in free agency. Delhomme, a former backup with New Orleans at the time, only 2 career starts to that point, I believe. And Rodney Peete started the opener, and the Panthers fell behind, and I think it was at halftime. Foxy just, broke the glass, pulled the handle, put Jake Delhomme in. Panthers came back, won the game, went all the way to the Super Bowl that year. And Jake Delhomme was their quarterback for besides when he was injured, he was their quarterback for the next 7 years. If you start Bo Nix and something goes awry early, you don't have that possibility, that thing that you can do to just shake it up when things are going wrong, when you're not playing as well as you should. Because once you put Bo Nix in, if you take him out, unless it's very specific that you're going to put him back in right away, it's a recipe for disaster. So
Rachel did ask me.
That's why I think
today.
that's why I think you'll probably. That's why I think even though Bo Nix is the better quarterback, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Jarrett Stidham starts. Just so you have that, you have that eject button, and also Seattle's a darn tough place for anybody to play, let alone somebody making their first NFL start.
I don't disagree with that, but I'm not afraid of that. I don't think Sean Payton would be afraid of that either. Rachel did ask me on coffee break today if I thought Jarrett Stidham was being safe because it's his job to lose. And I said, it's either that or he knows the deal. All roads lead to Bo Nix. All roads lead to Bo Nix. So I don't think Stidham is behaving in that manner. I just think that's his game because once again, we see Bo Nix making those strikes, making those throws to Tim Patrick, to Lucas Kroll, and, those more tighter window throws. And once again, we see Jarrett Stidham just kind of being safe and checking the ball down and doing what Jarrett Stidham does. It's not bad. It's just not advancing.
Let me ask you this. If Jarrett Stidham tried to do that, does he have those clubs in his bag?
No.
No hesitation whatsoever.
Well, part of it, what do they say? I think Dennis Miller used to say this: paranoia is just a keen awareness of one's surroundings. Like when you just know who you are, would I host a hockey post-game show? No, it would be terrible. It would be awful. And okay, would Jarrett Stidham try to make those throws like Bo? No, because he can't.
See, it's fun. It's funny. I picture you doing a hockey show and sounding like the Stuart Smalley, Michael Jordan Saturday Night Live sketch where he's says I don't put the ball through the goal like you do, or just
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough.
And doggone it, people like me, or a politic. You know how politicians get when they start trying to be regular, but I'm
gonna drink a beer.
Yeah,
yeah. I know all about that.
Or the basketball rings. I mean, as one politician said, tell me you know nothing without saying that you know nothing. What's the one word you guys would use to describe Bo Nix? This question coming from the chat. One word. That's tough. I'd say see, it's hard because like quick processor's 2 words.
I got 1 word. You can tell me what you think of it.
Okay.
Sharp.
Ascending.
Very descriptive word.
I feel like if you take I don't believe in the 1-day sample size. I feel like if you took this training camp and did a series of 3-day sample sizes and like said, okay, like a rolling 3-day average on Bo Nix, that you would see ascendancy, which is what you're looking for. Now, if you did the individual days, it would look more, like there would be more ups and downs.
Sure.
But the 3-day average, I think, would be pretty close to a straight incline.
That's why instinctually we never went into the show saying like we're going to grade the quarterbacks every day, because I think that's dumb.
I'm glad we're not. That is the stupidest thing.
But we did it instinctually. Like we didn't even talk about it because there's no way in hell that you should be grading them every day. It's an aggregate.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening? What's happening is Nix is getting better.
Yeah. To me right now, he's the best quarterback on the field. Mm-hmm. And my instinct is play the best guys. Cerebral, says Broncos Syndicate. That's a good word, Gage. I like that.
Good job, Gage. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Cerebral, ascending, sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds pretty good.
He might be QB6 in the draft, but he's not going to be QB6 among the draft class this year. I feel very confident of that.
Yeah. Him or Penix could be the best of this class.
Long term or this year?
Long term.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know if Penix is going to have the opportunities just yet.
Not yet. But man, he can sling it. He can absolutely sling it.
And he's going to have time to marinate in a scheme that's going to make him better. This is another thing with Penix and Bo Nix. What did both find themselves in when they got drafted? Even though Atlanta, the situation is awkward because they signed Kirk Cousins, the scheme fit is superb for Michael Penix Jr. The scheme fit is superb for Bo Nix. These two, I think, are going to be in situations that allow themselves to maximize their gifts. Now, are their gifts in terms of natural talent, athleticism? Are their gifts on the level of Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May? Probably not, which is why they went 1, 2, 3 in the draft. But you always say it, C's. It's fit. That's the big thing. How do they fit? Question there. Do you think J.J. McCarthy would be at the same point as Bo now if Denver drafted him? No.
Nope.
And this is where it was Adam Troutman who mentioned the 61 starts.
Yes. Yeah.
When he talked about him. 61 starts, 61 high-level starts. And in particular, even though we sort of, maybe look at the spread style schemes and say, oh, that doesn't translate, more and more of those concepts bleed in the NFL with every passing year. So there is carryover for Nix in terms of being able to build off of what he did on the college level.
High
mature,
level.
Another good one. We've heard a few players have said mature as well. That's something.
I think Troutman might have said that too, right? About the starts. Like you can sense maturity, and that's a confidence in running the huddle. And I think it's smooth. You know.
I'm glad I waited to ask these questions until we were at least a week into camp. See, that was a thing. I didn't want to do it. I didn't really ask a lot of those questions immediately. I wanted to about Bo Nix and the perspective from from his offensive teammates and the guys facing him on defense. I wanted to get a sample size before I started peeling back the layers on that. So there, in case you're not that anyone is ever interested, this is so inside baseball in terms of like what goes into asking questions. And yeah, I have stinkers of questions I ask. We all do. That's just this business, right?
It happens.
Sometimes you can't phrase a question right. Sometimes you stammer. Sometimes you just catch a person on a bad day. Sometimes it's a bad day yourself. Stuff happens. I've pissed people off before. I'll piss people off in the future, hopefully.
They'll be all right.
Because if I'm doing it in the future, it means I'm still doing this. So
Right.
Yeah.
Shorter questions are always better, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can have a little background, but the question itself needs to be relatively crisp. I remember the late Larry King used to say 7 words. You can't always get there, but you don't want to. You don't want to get in a situation where the subject asks, "What's your question?" And unfortunately, it's happened to all of us. So it happened to me. So
yeah, that's all. It's
experience.
all good.
Experience for Bo Nix, it matters, and he's continuing to accumulate that. I think experience in asking questions matters. By the way, were you surprised that nobody told Lucas Kroll about the statement that you made?
No, I wasn't surprised because players are playing. That was a talk amongst the coach and amongst PR. Like it was a talk there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It doesn't get to the players.
Yeah. Who asked that question, by the way, today?
Kliss.
Oh,
because I give him a pass. I give him a pass for that.
Mike is at his kind of
DGAF mode.
Yes. Which
I love it.
You get to a point in your career where you can just be blunt and like whatever, like just let it fly. Mike's been in the business professionally for I think I want to say like 43, 44 years now. And that's where you can just let it fly. Whatever. Like you say, DGAF, that's perfect.
Yeah.
David SLC, Sunday's going to answer a lot of questions. It may answer a lot of questions. It may also create some more questions. Preseason games sometimes create as many questions as they answer, because inevitably there's going to be a guy that we probably weren't talking about all that much when the lights go on flashes. And then somebody who we've been talking about, the lights go on, they take a step back. Happens almost every year. Now, usually you have a sense. Jaleel McLaughlin, we were telling you last year, was having a good camp, and then he carried over into preseason games. So that made it easy. When the Venn diagram crossed over, good in practice, good in games, that's when we were pretty confident he was going to make the team. But there'll be some questions and new topics that arise, and that's what's fun about like the preseason games when they come. It's just in time, because as you can probably tell, the conversation does get repetitive after a while. It's just how it is. Well, then we get a preseason game to come in and, move the pieces all around the board again and start over.
Jazz hands.
Yeah, like it's random chess. We're going to move all the pieces on the board and start the game from there. That's what happens in a preseason game. And what's looking like a beautiful Sunday in Indianapolis. Chris Thomas and I were checking the weather today. 77 degrees is the forecast. So I imagine the roof's going to be open in downtown Indianapolis. The breeze will blow those AFC finalist banners. Gosh. I had to do it. I'm sorry.
Not a raindrop will fall on the Peyton Manning statue. I'll say this to get out in front of it. Reese Taylor will be a player we talk about more after the preseason.
Reese Taylor, by the way, like, when I love watching him when they do punt drills, because Reese Taylor's becoming very good at getting downfield and knocking that ball back in and keeping it from going into the end zone. And I bring that up because for somebody like him, that's the skill that's going to get him a roster spot potentially.
Oh yeah.
What he does on defense is well and good, but special teams can be his ticket. to the 53. He's got a very real chance at a spot. Someone frankly, like Reese Taylor could end up taking Tremon Smith's spot, but Tremon Smith could consolidate his status by being money on kickoff returns. So there's a lot going on special teams that's going to impact the back end of the roster there, which is why I had to give you a little bit of crap for questioning the special teams line of questioning, because it's going to be really freaking important.
I didn't say it wasn't going to be important. Just like 6 of them in one day is a little much. A little much.
If there are 18 questions in a press conference, shouldn't 6 be on offense, 6 be on defense, and 6 on teams? Ideally.
Perhaps.
And I would say over the course of time, it doesn't work out that way. I'd say special teams probably is about 10% of the questions, even though you could argue it's 33%. Yeah, and even though it's not 10% of my questions over the course of time, I know that.
Well, Mace, it wasn't a great day of practice, but
no,
I think
Sean Payton didn't like the practice today.
And then he kind of summarized it. It was okay. I think it was less than okay, but
like I said, I mentioned that play, the Jaleel McLaughlin sweep. Like, it was with the twos. It didn't look like anybody on offense knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. Like everybody was lost, and then even defensively, guys looked lost, like not filling lanes. And so Jaleel just basically did it himself. That's one of those, like, sometimes it's obvious who the best player on the field is for a given play. In that case, it was, because there was one guy who seemed to know where he was going. Fortunately for the offense, it was the running back, the guy who had the ball in his hand. Everybody else was just like, what? Huh? Yeah. There were a couple other moments like that I think they're going to take the film, and when they do the review, and the film review on some of those plays is going to be like 30 minutes, because there were so many things to break down. As you got the depth on the offensive line got tested, because they worked in Alex Palczewski, they worked in Matt Parrott with the first team, just to kind of get some looks and all that. But then there's a cascading effect down the roster. Frank Crumb's raw, by the way.
Yeah.
Is that euphemistic or accurate, or both?
It's both. Okay. And he's bound for the practice squad if he makes this team. And I hope he does. So I hope he does.
He's raw. Like, you can't coach like the kind of the bull in a china shop instinct that he has, which is why I'd keep him on practice squad. But man, if he had to go out there tomorrow, he would not be ready.
No.
I'm sorry to say.
No. But take some time. So give him some time. Yeah. If you think that's a possibility. Yeah. Mace, we've got time for you. Is that it for today? Again, it was kind of an average day, below average day.
Below average. If today is average, I mean, then average needs to be in the middle. You got to have an equal amount below, equal above. So I gotta say this one was below. That's okay. We'll come back tomorrow. They'll come back tomorrow. They'll get reamed out a little bit today, perhaps in the film room, and hopefully be better when they get on the field tomorrow morning.
All right. That's it. Well, we are past 13,000 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you all very much for that. Still about 50% of you that watch aren't subscribed, so we need your help to grow our YouTube channel. And Andrew Mason, how do you do that?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe.
Hit that notification bell
so that you
never miss a vid.
That's right. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching. OBT's the BFD. Stay tuned. Stay frosty.